In the beginning of the story, we see a cunning thief named Morris. He was caught by the police in a bank robbery case and was being taken to the world's most secure prison, Alcatraz, to be imprisoned for life. Alcatraz is a prison built on a small island in the middle of the ocean. That means even if a prisoner somehow manages to break out of the prison, he still cannot escape because the water blocks his way ahead. That is why this prison had earned the title of the world's most secure prison. Only the world's top criminals were kept here.
But soon, the reputation of this prison was about to be shattered, because now a cunning thief named Frank Morris had entered this jail, a man who had already escaped from several prisons before. However, this time Morris was a little nervous, because this prison was far more secure than any he had seen. Still, Morris had no intention of spending his entire life here. He wanted to escape his prison as quickly as possible. From the very moment he entered, Morris was already thinking about escaping. After a full body check from head to toe, he was locked inside a cell. Then a guard came and said to Morris, "You've got your meal, eat it quietly." Just then, a dangerous prisoner named Wolf begins to taunt Morris. Every inmate in the prison was troubled by Wolf. He imposed his will on everyone here, and he also had countless cases of assault against him. This prison held nothing but the most dangerous criminals. Here, an inmate named Litmus asks Morris for some food, and Morris gives him his plate. When Morris looks under the table, he realizes that Litmus isn't eating the food himself. He is feeding it to a rat. Later that night, a guard takes Morris to the warden's office.
When Morris reaches the warden's office, the warden says to him, "I know that you are very sharp-minded and highly intelligent, but what good is that here? Many like you have come and gone, yet no one has ever managed to escape from here." The warden explains that the prisoners here must follow very strict rules. Only once in 2 months can someone come to meet them, and that too only if the warden is in a good mood. The warden is an extremely strict man who gives very harsh punishments to inmates for even the smallest mistakes. Then the warden says, escaping from here is,
"Don't even think about it. Otherwise, you'll be torn to pieces." "No, sir. Who would dare think of escaping while you're here?" But in reality, from the very first day, Morris had already begun planning his escape. During this time, he secretly steals the warden's nail clipper. It was such a tiny object, yet Morris knew that in a prison like Alcatraz, even a small nail clipper could become a powerful tool. As soon as he returns to his cell, Morris hides the nail clipper inside his Bible. The next day in the bathroom, Wolf once again starts harassing Morris.
Wolf starts troubling him again, but this time, Morris wasn't going to let it slide. Now Morris shows his true side. He grabs Wolf and beats him badly. After thrashing Wolf, Morris gains a new kind of reputation inside the prison. Everyone begins to fear him. After this, Morris is assigned to work in the library. There, he meets a man named English, a senior inmate of this prison. English had been sentenced to the life imprisonment for murdering 2 men. He had already spent half of his life here and knew every single corner of this prison. He knew the jail. He always had information about everything happening inside the prison. He even knew that morning's fight between Morris and Wolf. He gives Morris some books, which Morris is supposed to deliver to the cells of different inmates. In the next scene, we see the open yard where prisoners are busy playing different games. There, Morris meets an artist named Doc, who was painting his own portrait. Doc was a very simple and decent man who had been serving his sentence here for many years. He had a deep passion for painting, and most of his time was spent creating art. According to Doc,
"In a prison like Alcatraz, anyone could go insane," Doc said. "But thanks to my painting, my mind has stayed sane so far." Morris asks Doc, "Why did you include this flower in your painting? I don't see anything like that on your shirt." Doc replies, "That's my happiness. It exists only in my painting, not in my mind." After this, when Morris looks to his right, he sees English up above. Morris walks toward English, but as he gets closer, English's men stop him. Then English signals, indicating he's one of my own. Let him come.
Morris sits down next to him and immediately opens up his heart. He says, "You'll help me escape from here, won't you?" Hearing this, English laughs. "Look, son, this isn't just a prison. This is our grave. If we want to get out, we have to die first. Only then will our dead bodies make it from here to the cemetery. And let's even assume you somehow climb over these massive walls, cross all the dangerous forces, and by some magical power, manage to get past the hundreds of guards here. Even then, escaping this place is not as simple as you think."
"Even then, you won't be able to escape from here," English continued, "because the ocean ahead will stop you. So don't waste your time. Serve your sentence quietly. At least you'll stay alive." But Morris was determined. No matter what, he wanted to escape from this prison. That night, An officer informs Morris, "Starting tomorrow, you'll be assigned to carpentry work. You'll earn 50 cents per hour as daily wages." Morris immediately agrees to the work, thinking that there might be a tool there that could help him in his escape. The next day, Morris discusses with Litmus about how to get out of here. Morris asks Litmus for a way out. Litmus says, "Well, that's quite simple. Every cell has an air vent. You can use it to reach the roof. From there, you might be able to escape." Morris smiles at this advice and walks away. Then Doc warns Morris, "Wolf is coming your way." At that moment, Wolf lunges at Morris with a knife. Morris wraps his coat around his hand and starts fighting back. Just then, a guard comes to stop them, but Wolf also attacks the guard with his knife. The situation escalates and the watchtower guard starts firing his gun. Then the guards arrive and force Morris and Wolf to stop fighting. Morris hadn't realized that there was also a guard on the watchtower. Now he begins to notice every single detail of the prison, one by one. The guards take Morris and Wolf to D Block, where prisoners are tortured all night in complete darkness. This was a cell that no inmate wanted to go near. Before entering, Wolf threatens Morris, "Son, your death will come at my hands." That night, Morris endures various forms of torture, leaving him in a severely weakened state. For 2 weeks, he remains locked in that dark cell. After staying there for 2 weeks, Morris is brought back to his own cell. There, Litmus sent him a note through his pet rat, which reads, "Welcome back, Morris." One day, a new prisoner named Charlie arrives and is placed in the cell next to Morris. Morris and Charlie quickly become friends. Morris then introduces him to some of his other friends. At the same time, the warden begins inspecting every cell without informing anyone. When he reaches Doc's cell, he notices several paintings that Doc has created. The warden is astonished, realizing that day by day, his paintings kept growing in number. Doc had even painted a portrait of the warden. Seeing it, the warden smiled, but for some reason, nobody could tell why. The next day, the warden orders the guards to throw out all the paintings Doc had made in his cell. This decision completely breaks Doc from inside because his art was the only thing keeping him alive. He loved every single painting he had created, as it was his only source of happiness. And now, even that had been taken away. Morris tries to console him, saying, "It's okay.
"It's just a painting. You can make more," Morris said. But Doc couldn't recover from the shock. The next day, seeing him in the state, Morris tells a guard, "Please keep an eye on Doc. He looks really troubled. Don't let him harm himself." The guard responds, "Mind your own business." Doc is also assigned to carpentry work along with Morris. While there, Doc secretly slips something into Morris's pocket. Then he calls over a guard and, using the carpenter's axe, cuts off 3 of his own fingers. He says, "The fingers with which
I can't paint. I don't need them," Doc shouted, and the guards immediately grabbed him. Morris notices that Doc had slipped the same flower he had used in his painting into Morris's coat. Perhaps Doc was trying to tell Morris, "They took away my only happiness." Morris carefully picks up Doc's severed fingers and places them in a box. Seeing a guard nearby, he says, "Go, give this to your warden. He'll be very pleased to see it." The next day, Morris is sitting in his cell when he notices a cockroach crawling into the air vent.
Seeing the cockroach, Morris realizes that there must be a way to get out of here. Just then, English comes and explains that Doc had cut off his own fingers because his permission to paint had been revoked. Frustrated and helpless, he had resorted to this extreme. Knowing this, Morris feels a surge of anger. The next day, in the dining hall, the warden asks Morris, "Why are you supporting Doc so much?" Morris replies, "It's nothing like that," and returns to his seat at the table. There, he meets 2 brothers, John and Clarence. But Morris talks to them as if he had known them for a long time. John and Clarence had actually been part of Morris's gang in another prison. For John, escaping from this prison now seemed easier because these 2 brothers were just as sharp-minded as Morris. The 3 of them soon began planning their escape together. In the afternoon, Charlie's girlfriend comes to visit him. On the other side, English's daughter comes to see him. Seeing his daughter, tears fill English's eyes because in his absence, she had grown up so much, and he realizes how much of her life he had missed. English deeply regrets not being able to see his daughter's childhood. On the other hand, Charlie's wife tells him, "Your mother is very ill, and the doctors say she may not live more than a few months." Hearing this, Charlie also begins to think about escaping from Alcatraz. Just then, a guard comes and announces that visiting time is over. Charlie becomes very distressed. That night, Charlie tells Morris, "If you plan to escape from here, include me in it too." The next day, Morris holds a meeting with Charlie, John, and Clarence. He tells them that every cell has an air vent. The vent opens up to the roof. Another thing is that this place is surrounded by a sea filled with salty water, which has weakened the walls. I have a nail clipper, and I've already started digging. If I dig little by little and create a small tunnel to reach the roof, then, after inspecting this area, we can figure out how to escape from here. John asks, but if the guards find out at night that you're not in your cell, won't they get suspicious? At that moment, Clarence says, I have the solution to this problem. He continues,
There's a barber here who knows me and cuts prisoners' hair. He can supply us with hair, and we can use it to make a dummy head and place it on the bed. That way, if we escape through the tunnel and reach the roof, the guards won't suspect anything because there will be a fake head on our bed. But the problem still remained. How would they cross the seawater surrounding the prison? Morris turns to John and says, Look, I'll need your help with this. You work in the clothing department. There, you have access to uniforms made for those police officers.
You can get raincoats from the clothing department, so steal a few and give them to me. We can make 2 boat and life jackets from them to cross the sea. Charlie said, Brother, give me some work too. I want to help you guys. Morris told Charlie, when I dig the ventilation grill, you keep watch so that no guard sees us. And when you dig, I'll keep watch for you. Everyone liked Morris's plan, and that very night they began working. But the nail clipper was too small to dig the wall. Morris had to put in a lot of effort, and it was extremely difficult. His hands started hurting, but slowly he began making progress. The next day, at the dining table, he tells his friends, I need a bigger tool for digging. The nail clipper is too hard to work with. Then, seeing a spoon in his hand, an idea comes to Morris. He deliberately soils the spoon by rubbing it on his shoe. Then, he calls a guard and says, This spoon is dirty. Give me another one. Other prisoners also request new spoons. The guard sees nothing suspicious and immediately gives them new spoons. Morris then heads straight to the table where another security guard is seated. As he starts switching spoons, John distracts the guard with a conversation. Using this, Morris picks up 2 spoons instead of 1 and hides one in his pocket, then returns to his cell. That night, English comes to deliver a book, and Morris asks, Will I find any welding equipment here? English realizes that Morris still has the urge to escape from the prison. He says, I've told you before, your attempts will be useless. You'll get caught and might even lose your life. I've never thought of escaping myself because I know it's impossible. But you're stubborn, so what can I do? Try if you want. Morris pays no attention to the warning. The next day, he asks Litmus for matches and says, If you help me, I'll give your rat my share of food every day. Litmus, loving his rat, happily agrees. That night, he passes the matches to Morris. Morris removes one handle from the nail clipper to make a small spade. Then, he breaks the spoon and attaches it to the nail clipper handle. Using the matches, he welds both pieces together to create a sharp, durable tool. Finally, he starts digging around the vent. Charlie keeps watch. If a god came near, Charlie would immediately signal Morris with a whistle. But while keeping watch, Charlie dozed off, and a guard approached. Fortunately, English intervened at that moment, distracting the guard. Meanwhile, hearing English talk, Charlie woke up. But in panic, he couldn't blow the whistle and accidentally dropped something. Morris understood the signal, covered the vent, and lay down on the bed. The guard sniffed the air. I smell something burning here. Morris replied confidently, Sir, with you around, who would dare smoke? And I don't smell anything. The guard, slightly reassured, walked away, thinking, Finally, someone appreciates me. Once the coast was clear, Morris removed the concrete around the vent. But he noticed that the ventilation grill had screws as well, which would require a sharp tool to remove. Whenever he got a chance to go outside, he quietly disposed of the cement pieces from the grill. The next day, while working as a carpenter, he picked up a sharp piece of metal like a knife. Charlie warned him, How will you take this outside without being caught by the metal detector? Morris confidently replied, Don't worry, I've got this. When Morris went outside, the metal detector beeped at the door. The guard asked, Why are you carrying this? Morris said, Sir, I thought I'd use it to hang some clothes. The guard warned him, Don't get too smart. Give it to me. The guard took the metal, checked Morris thoroughly, and let him go.
But Morris, being the hero he was, had actually stolen 2 pieces of metal, one in his hand and another hidden in his shoe. Using the sharp metal, he cut through the grill. Next came the task of creating the dummy head to fool the guards. Each of the 4 prisoners took responsibility for part of the work. Charlie requested some paint from a guard, claiming, "I enjoy making art." The guard didn't refuse and gave him the paint. Morris crushed the concrete removed from the vent into a fine powder. John collected hair from the barber shop, and Clarence gathered old books from the library. With all the materials ready, Morris began making a dummy head using water and old magazines. He painted it and added the fake hair to make it look completely realistic. To strengthen the plan, Morris also created fake cardboard panels to hide the tunnel in the wall, ensuring no one would suspect anything. One night, Morris decided to go up alone. He placed the dummy head on the bed, covering it with a blanket up to the neck. Then he took the fake cardboard and crawled through the tunnel. Outside, Morris reached the pipes.
Morris climbed up to the roof slowly, holding on carefully. Meanwhile, Charlie kept watch outside. Once on the roof, Morris saw an iron grill which was too high even to reach by jumping. Just then, a guard appeared and asked Charlie, "Why are you painting so late at night? And why did your friend Morris go to bed so early today?" Charlie replied, "Sir, Morris was tired from doing carpentry work today. That's why he went to sleep early." Suddenly, the guard dropped his baton. As he picked it up, he noticed that Morris's hair looked very strange. Charlie trembled in fear, thinking today is going to be tricky. The guard reached into Morris's cell and touched his hair. Morris calmly asked, "What is it, sir? Are my hairs looking that beautiful?" Fortunately, at that moment, Morris had already dropped down and was lying safely. The next day, Morris tells his companions that there is a way on the roof, but it is blocked by a high iron grill. "I'll need another partner's help," he says. John replies, "I fully dug my vent. Tonight I'll reach the roof too." Together, they plan to open the grill. That night, Morris and John reach the roof through their vents. John helps Morris, who grabs hold of the grill. John sees that the iron grill is extremely strong and fully welded. The only way to remove it is by cutting it with a drill machine. The next day, during music class, everyone plays their instruments freely. Morris notices a small fan in the room and gets an idea. He can use it to build a drill machine. He tells Charlie, "You need to somehow hide this fan." Charlie easily hides the fan in his instrument box. Even when the guards check the boxes, they don't notice the fan and let Charlie go. Once Morris has the fan, he works on it for hours and finally builds a functional drill machine. That night, Morris and Charlie climb the roof and start drilling the iron rod of the grill. The drill makes a loud noise, attracting the guards. But by then, Morris has cut through one of the rods and the noise stops. The guards, hearing nothing unusual, leave. Now all escape routes are open. That Tuesday night, they are set to escape from Alcatraz, the world's most secure prison, from which no one had ever escaped before. The next day, they hold another meeting in the movie hall.
In the movie hall, where everyone was watching a film, Morris asks John and Clarence over the movie sound, "Is your vent ready? And what about those raincoats we were going to use to make the tubes in life jackets?" They reply, "Everything's ready. Our dummy head is completely ready too. Now it's just a matter of waiting to escape." The next morning, during breakfast, Morris places the flour given by Dog on the table. When the warden sees the flour, he crushes it with his hand at their table. Litmus gets furious because the flour was Dog's favorite and Dog had died. In anger, Litmus attacks the warden, shouting, "First you killed Dog, and now you can't even leave his small token alone." But suddenly, Litmus suffers a heart attack and collapses. Morris gets very angry at the warden, and that night the 4 decide to escape. Morris waits until midnight when the guards' watch becomes slightly weaker, giving them the best chance to escape. At that moment, English gives Morris some books in his cell. Morris says, "I want to shake your hand one last time." English realizes that Morris has made a firm plan to escape and quietly leaves. However, what happens next is completely unexpected by Morris. The warden suddenly decides to inspect his cell as if someone had tipped him off about the plan. Morris panics, knowing that months of hard work were at risk of being ruined. The warden orders a complete inspection of every corner of Morris's cell. Guards check every item meticulously. But Morris is no ordinary prisoner. His plan wasn't small or sloppy. It was perfectly clean and flawless, something neither the warden nor even the warden's grandfather could have caught. Even when the guards moved the suitcase from the exact spot where Morris had made the tunnel, they find nothing. Morris had already created a fake cardboard perfectly fitted into the wall. Finding nothing suspicious, the warden and guards leave. However, a guard remarks, "Morris and Charlie keep talking all night. Something's fishy." The warden replies, "Fine. Change Morris's cell tomorrow so they can't be together or talk." The next day at breakfast, Wolf threatens Morris again, saying, "Tonight will be your last night here." Morris tells his companions, "This idiot is right. Tonight really will be my last night here." But that afternoon, Wolf attacks Morris with a knife. At that moment, English intervenes and grabs Wolf. In fact, English also wants to help Morris. Whether he succeeds or not, English wants to assist him in his plan. That night, Morris, John, Clarence, and Charlie decide to meet on the roof by coming out through their respective vents. Charlie initially agrees to join the escape with his friends, but once inside his cell, fear grips him. Sitting alone, he decides not to participate in the plan, while the other three exit through their vents and reach the roof. The three wait for Charlie for a long time. After a long while, when it becomes clear that Charlie will not come, they decide to proceed without him. Following their plan, the three move forward carefully. Meanwhile, Charlie watches his dream of freedom slip away. The three hide under searchlights and slowly make their way to the end of the building. Seeing this, Charlie gains courage and decides to escape as well. He climbs through his vent to reach the roof. But it is too late. Alone, he cannot reach the roof door. Fear has cost him his chance at freedom. On the other hand, the three reach the roof, hang from the pipes, and make their way to the final wall of the prison, avoiding the security guard in the tower. One by one, they climb the fence and exit the prison. They run swiftly to the edge of the water. Then they inflate the raincoats with their mouths to make a makeshift tube boat. It takes them a long time, but they have no other option. Using all their strength, they finally inflate the boat and set it in the water. In this way, the three shatter Alcatraz's reputation and escape. The next morning, a guard checks every cell. At first, everything seems normal. But when he reaches Charlie's cell, Charlie is standing there like a ghost, silently berating himself. "If only I had mustered a bit of courage last night, I might have escaped with the others." The guard asks, "Why has your friend been sleeping so long?" Then he goes to Morris's cell and calls out. There's no response. Angered, the guard opens the cell and grabs Morris by the hair, trying to pull him up. But when he yanks him, his head drops down. He feels as if the ground has slipped from beneath his feet because Morris is no longer in the cell.
But Morris was enjoying the outside world. On the bed, he had left his dummy head. Immediately, sirens began blaring throughout Alcatraz. The news spread like wildfire. Some prisoners had escaped. The warden searched every corner of the prison for the three escapees. When he couldn't find them inside, he launched a search operation in the surrounding waters. The warden couldn't believe that they had actually escaped. He assumed that the three must have drowned. Yet deep down, he knew they were strong, resourceful men. By now, they had crossed the ocean waters and were breathing the air of freedom. Headquarters officers bombarded the warden with questions.
What were you thinking while they escaped?" The warden was extremely tense. Then he noticed Dog's favorite flower, the same one Morris had placed. It was a silent message that Morris had also taken revenge for Dog. The head of the search team reported that they had scoured everywhere, but no bodies were found. To save his job and reputation, the warden was forced to file a report claiming that the prisoners had attempted to escape but drowned in the water. However, no one believed Walton's report. After this daring escape, Morris became famous worldwide as the genius who broke out of Alcatraz. 1 year after the incident, Alcatraz prison was shut down because it could no longer guarantee that escape was impossible. And so ends this film based on a true